previously on Investors in the Wild.
I didn't have a great degree of financial literacy in our marriage. I always just kind of left everything to him because it was like, finance is boring. But there was a period in my life where I had nowhere to go. And that was a really strong, like, I want something that's my own.
No one cares about your money as much as what you do.
Everyone's got relationships, right? So they'll recommend who they might get a kickback from. Sometimes I think when you pinch for time, it's really tempting to just go, well, if this person said that person's good, so that's fine. But there were a few times where I kind of like someone recommended an insurance broker to me. And then I went and did my own research and it was like thousands of dollars cheaper. And it meant that I sold a property. I had to find a new property very quickly to live in. As a result, I pulled the trigger on buying a property that wasn't 100% right. That property itself has just been a nightmare.
So this ends up being like a $10,000 mistake in the first year. You're told to trust different people's opinions and there's no accountability. The buyer's agent still got their money. The real estate agent got his money. I'm the only one who ends up losing here.
Sometimes you kind of have to live through it to know though.
That's the problem with investing. In your best investor moment.
I actually use a buyer's agent to buy a property in Adelaide. And that's been really good for me for a few different, I think this time around was a lot more skeptical and kind of like, yeah, okay, let me think about it. So that worked out quite well. The other learning I had from that was in terms of my own risk appetite, that the house that I bought it's a lot smaller. Obviously, South Australia is a lot cheaper than Sydney. And so I'm just a lot closer to my own tolerance levels of when there are little things to repair or things to be done for this property.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw myself onto my bed and cry because it's like, oh, it hurts, but it's actually not. Like, it's very easy to absorb the costs of that because the mortgage repayments are very achievable and the income I'm getting pretty much is on par with that. So my comfort levels, whereas the other property I have is much bigger. And when things tend to go wrong with that, they tend to be big. They tend to be like things that are like, oh God, I'm going to need to take a chunk of cash to settle that thing.
So the secret to your success with Adelaide was that you happened to find a great trustworthy buyer's agent. Is that kind of the big?
That's a degree of it. Unfortunately, this is not like a great answer, but a lot of it did come down to timing. Like,
okay,
Adelaide has gone gangbusters. I feel like Indiana Jones, like pulling his hat out at the right time, like, because I bought something just as things started to go.
It's a great buyer's agent, a little bit of luck, and maybe doing some research of your own to validate what that.
Because I wasn't leading from like an emotional point of view of like, I want this house in this place, I was able to be a lot less emotional about like, okay, let's just look at cash flow, renovation, that kind of stuff, rather than going, I want a nice house in this area. I wouldn't live in the house that I've bought as an investment.
That's literally the words that I wrote, because I do think part of your evolution has been really shifting from, and maybe it's in your more recent purchases, you've got great stories about buying based on emotion. And I think you've built on that and learned, actually, this is kind of like messed me a bit. And so I actually think, yes, your momentum, buying in the right place, right time, being very calculating around and non-emotive around cash flow. But I also feel like part of your momentum has been, you've learned from mistakes as well. I feel like there's another part to your momentum as well, KJ, where you've kind of, this is definitely the wrong word and we will definitely edit this out, but you've evolved away from apartments. Like, I will never forget the most memorable quote ever, definitely going to get edited. When I first said to you, oh, okay, it's interesting that your last two purchases have been houses, your purchases before that were apartments. And yeah, you said something like, I hate apartments, strata are. I was like, whoa.
Why edited that out? That's the best.
Yeah, it's dealing with other people. Having to do things by consensus is
God, yes.
And I remember the first apartment we had, there were people that were insistent that we needed to repaint our whole internal lobby a different color. And it was like, it was a new building. It was not necessary. everyone got railroaded. It ended up happening, and they painted it like the same color. Like it went from like bone cream to like cream eggshell, and it was just like, are you fucking kidding me? So things like that just drive me insane, and just things that you have to get approval for. So the apartment that I had in Lane Cove, it was freezing because they had like cheap ass windows from the 70s, and I had to get permission like to be able to change that internally. It does not affect the structure. Like I just wanted to like actually change the window itself, and like of course it's part of the external structure and stuff, but it's just the hoops that you've got to jump through to get permission from people who are just like hungry on power. So the wrong approach when I was younger, of like just walking and going, I like the feel of this place, it's got great energy, and like,
oh my God,
you're not thinking about anything else.
Oh, so okay, so like just to take what Beck said, which is you don't know until you've gone through it what those are some of the challenges that you faced, in the biggest challenges that you faced on this journey towards building your property portfolio.
Yeah, so there's two aspects to it. There is like removing the property aspect. Being a single parent is challenging in the sense that you are the primary caregiver and you are the primary breadwinner. And both of those things are full-time jobs. And unfortunately, the society that we live in, one is always at the expense of the other. So if I want to genuinely do my job the way I would do it as a single person with no dependents, I could, all the things that I'm missing out on now, networking, working long hours, doing all the discretionary and incremental input that get you additional income, that get you promoted, that get you doing, like, I have to kind of put those things on the back burner. So it's hard for me to know that I am not living up to my full earning potential. And then the other flip side of that is, okay, let's say I do lean into it and do what lots of mums do and absolutely grind themselves to the bone. I have learned the hard way that it makes me a terrible parent. And I see that in the behavior of my child, because children are like a mirror. The more stressed I am, the harder that he is to deal with. And it's taken me, like he's 7 now, it's taken me 7 years to realize that anytime he is acting up or something is not good with him, it's because of me. It's like, and it's not like, oh, it's because of me and like I'm a terrible parent. It's that he is feeding on my energy of like me being rush, hurry up. You're not doing what I need you to do. And parenting is fun and go with the flow when, like, it's fun when you're not putting a time limit on anything and you're just enjoying each other's company. But when I demand things of him and want him to do things, it's always because I need something for work. I need you to go to sleep because I've got to jump on a call. I need you to get the fuck out of the house because I've got a meeting. And just little things like that. So irrespective of property, I hate that there's a trade-off of those things. And I think in a heteronormative relationship, you can at least tap in and out to that. So like, I've got to work late tonight. You need to pick up the kids. There is a bit of a, yeah. So that's hard. That is really hard. From a property perspective, I think what is hard about being single, particularly in Sydney, is that like there's single person tax on everything. Like,
but like, let's just also admit, like, you've got your job and the parenting, and investing actually doesn't fit as part of the job. Investing is on top of.
Yes,
So
yes.
there's the time tax, as well as I think what you're about to say about financial tax as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, you're doing the work on top of it. Like when you're in a relationship, you're like, let's say a house, you're like, oh my God, $2 million house, really expensive. Like you're paying for half of that. You're paying for half the mortgage, but you're also paying half of the electricity. You're paying for like half a car. Like, 'cause I see lots of people driving around in crazy expensive cars and I'm going, how are you doing that? And then I always have to remember they only paid for half of it, So having to wear 100% cost of everything is what makes it really hard, I think, to get ahead in terms of property. Like you've got to wear the expenses 100% on your own. And I think that's like sometimes can be really demotivating. But then I think to myself, what's the alternative? Like, are you just going to shrink away and die just because you're not getting like the big thing that you wanted? There's still a compromise in between of just having to settle for what is achievable.
So you've taken that big step, you've paid that time tax, that single person tax. What's the big benefit that you're reaping from going down that path? Why is it worth it?
I think it is like, this is so cheesy, but like investing in yourself. Like there has to be an upfront, like there are expenses for things, but they will pay off in the long term. It's like going to university. I remember my family just being like, oh my God, you're going to pay like 40K, I think was at the time, to do this degree. And it's like, yeah, but this will get me a job that will pay so much more than I could without that investment. So a lot of it is like upfront investment. And so you just have to think about the long term. And I think probably my biggest regret with all of it is that I wish I'd just done it earlier. And hindsight's a beautiful thing, but I think I read some stats somewhere in terms of like shares and things like that. Like if you had invested like $100 a week in shares from the age of like 15, you could retire by the time you were 50. And it's like,
oh my God, I've been thinking about shares and now you make me want to gouge my eyes out for not going down that path.
Oh yeah. So like, it's one of those things you just got to jump in. And I think for a really long time, because I couldn't do it all, I think that I put it off because of that. But now it's like, one of my favorite sayings is don't do nothing just because you can't do everything. So like, it's okay if like, I'm never going to be a billionaire mansion owner, but I also don't need to be. Like, I just want to be comfortable, and making small incremental changes is better than like not feeling good enough that you couldn't get the bigger thing.
I genuinely feel like if you want a get rich quick scheme, it actually does not happen unless you sacrifice in the immediate term. And it is something that does just really take years before you start to really just feel like you're an inch ahead, you know, a little bit more ahead. How do you talk to Rocky about money now, KJ? Do you?
Yeah, it's tricky. He's still not old enough to kind of comprehend the value of things. So for his birthday, he was like, can we have a Mercedes party? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, everyone has to come in a Mercedes. And I was like, that's just not how life works, my friend. So it's really funny because he's really into cars, and in some ways his education has been about value has been through cars, because now he is equating, I could buy 3 Toyotas for the price of like a BMW, or like I could buy 10 Toyotas for the price of a Ferrari, and things like that. So that's leaning into his interest to try and get him interested about something. But he did say something, because he's learning about money, and he's learning about how to get money. You don't get money for nothing. You get money for doing chores and things like that. And he said to me one day, when I grow up, I'm going to get 10 jobs. I'm going to have 10 jobs so I can earn so much money. And I said, well, when are you going to have time to relax? And he's like, well, I won't relax. I'll just work forever. And I was like, but what sort of a life is that when you're just working all the time? And he's like, well, it doesn't matter. And I was like, but you'll be really, really tired and you won't have time to spend any of your money. And he's just like, okay. So it's like, there's sort of like an ethical thing with it as well, in terms of like, and like mental health and mental resilience and things like that. It's like, life cannot just always be about money and stuff. And that's so hard teaching that to a kid, because they just want. Like when you're a kid, Christmas and your birthday are like the best things ever, because it's about getting.
Yeah.
So if you rewind back to your younger self living with your family who basically really, didn't invest and so didn't bestow that knowledge upon you, in so to speak, is there anything that you'd wish they had told you that you might pass on to Rocky investing?
I think like my parenting approach with him is like from day dot has been incredibly different. I mean, I was born in the 80s, so like parents just had their children and, come home when the lights are on.
Fed and watered them.
Yes, exactly. I just have a lot stronger focus on education, because that was not a thing in my family. Like both my brothers didn't finish high school. My mom hasn't worked most of her younger life. No, like the first person in my extended family to go to university. So I think there's just a different approach there of like, it's not essential. Like one of the great things about Australia is a very entrepreneurial kind of climate, but you do need to put in some work to get somewhere. And it's not impossible. So I think that's like the message that I've always had with Rocky. Like he's, you know, I don't want to go to school. School sucks. I'm like, dude, you have to do these things. If you want to buy that Ferrari and you want to work for Mercedes and you want to do all these things, you got to put the work in. We've been talking about what's called the hedonistic treadmill of like not always wanting to explain to him, you know, when you get a toy and it's exciting for an hour and then you just want the next thing. So that's something I've probably had to learn.
Something that sounds like my dating life, really.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking, people. Thank you so much, KJ. I feel like we definitely need to, because there are so many pockets of golden nuggets that you've already bestowed upon us, that I feel like we definitely need another episode with you to deep dive into some of the areas that you touched upon. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us, and for being so open about your journey with us and vulnerable about the journey. And I'm sure it's something so many listeners can relate. Honestly, my background is completely different, but everything, your whole thought process is exactly my thought process now. Like, you know, the you when you were 19, 20, I feel like that's sort of where I'm at now. So I can relate so deeply with what you've shared, and I definitely have learned from some of your learning. So thank you so much.
It's funny, KJ, because we've spoken about property so much.
Yeah.
And to still be in this conversation and be like, that is so interesting. And like, what?
Hey, it's Daria. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow us on Spotify and drop a rating or a review. It'll help others find the show. And if you know someone who'd benefit from this conversation, please share it with them. We'd also love to hear from you, so DM us on Instagram at Investors in the Wild with feedback, questions, or topic ideas. And if you're an investor with insights to share, hit us up on Instagram or email us at investorsinthewild@gmail.com. After all, we're all mates helping each other.